My name is Natalie Hayes. I used to think I had escaped the past, until the man who once forced me into an abortion and accused me of cheating with my stepfather came back after 10 years. He stood at my mother's doorstep, coldly saying, "I know the girl is mine, and I'm here to take her back. But the truth is I never gave birth to that child. I lost the baby after everything he put me through. Now he's returned, haunting my daughter as if she were the second chance he somehow deserved. If it were you, what would you do when the man who once discarded you now wants to take the family you spent a decade rebuilding?" Leave a comment below, hit like if this story made something inside you feel seen. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that deserve to be heard. Let me tell you what happened when I stopped being the victim and became the one who fought back. I met Logan in my senior year of college. He was a year ahead, majoring in psychology while I was studying elementary education. We met at a small seminar on emotional learning in schools, something I wasn't interested in at all until he stood up to speak. It wasn't what he said. I don't even remember the content, but his eyes, the calm way he answered questions, and that smile that seemed to slow the whole room down. He had my attention from that moment. I didn't believe in love at first sight, but when Logan sat down next to me and made a soft joke about my neon pink pen, I laughed like a kid. 3 months later, we moved in together. 6 months after that, he gave me a ring under the yellow parking lot light behind the dorm. Everything came like a whirlwind. I had always been the good daughter in my mother's eyes, punctual, proper, studying a stable major. But when I told her I was marrying a man she'd never met, after only a few months of dating, she froze. "Are you sure?" she asked, eyes avoiding mine. "I love him, Mom." "Loving someone is one thing. But do you even know who he is?" I snapped. For the first time, I talked back. I said she didn't understand, that I wasn't a child she could control anymore. I ignored her warnings. The wedding was small but warm, held at an old church in Salem. A few of my close friends from college came, but the rest were all from Logan's side. Especially one person, Angela Carter. She wore a moss green dress and stood close to Logan's mother the entire ceremony, wiping her tears again and again, though no one could quite tell why. It was only after that day I learned Angela wasn't just an ex, she was Logan's childhood neighbor, his first love, the one he nearly proposed to before I came into the picture. "She took care of my mom after the stroke," Logan told me when I asked. "Mom's really fond of her." "But that's all in the past. You don't have to worry." I wanted to believe him, I truly did. But Angela didn't disappear. She started showing up at family dinners, Logan's mom's appointments, weekend gatherings. If I was there, she was already seated. If I wasn't, she still came. I'd seen her smile sweetly, but the way she looked at me never once showed kindness. One afternoon, I went to visit Logan's mom, bringing a homemade apple pie. Angela was already there, peeling apples in the kitchen like she belonged there. "Smells great," she said without looking up. "Next time you should add cinnamon. Logan's mom's always loved it that way." I gave a thin smile, trying to stay polite. But my chest tightened. Logan's mom never hid her favoritism. Anytime I did something, she'd nod and add, "Angela used to make this too, only a bit better." I kept quiet, thinking maybe if I worked a little harder things would change. But then came moments when I saw Angela gently touching Logan's shoulder when laughing, or hugging him casually in family photos. I finally asked Logan about it. He exhaled, barely meeting my eyes. "It's not that deep, Angela's always nearby, that's all. Don't let it get to you." Then he pulled me into a tight hug and told me I was the one he chose to marry, and I softened again. I chose to trust my husband over my instincts. I was the one who let Angela stay closer by doing nothing. Until one afternoon in late March, when I stood in the bathroom staring at the 2 bright red lines on a pregnancy test, and for a moment, all the exhaustion disappeared. I placed a hand over my belly, and the tears came on their own. "We're going to be a real family," I whispered, my heart trembling with joy. But I didn't know. That very moment, somewhere else, a storm was already forming. And at its center was Angela Carter. I remember that day clearly. A chilly Saturday morning after an overnight rain. I got up early, brewed coffee, and placed my hand on my belly like a new habit I'd developed since discovering the pregnancy. I was rehearsing how to break the news gently. Logan didn't handle surprises well, but I believed, when he heard this, he'd hold me like the night he proposed and say, "We'll be okay. You won't go through this alone." That's what I believed. But when I said the simple words, "I'm pregnant," the first thing he did was set his coffee cup down, silently look at me, then stand up and walk out the door. Without a word. I called after him. He didn't look back. I thought I'd misheard. I sat frozen on the chair, still clutching the pregnancy test like it might explain something. 1 hour. 2. Then night came. Logan didn't return. I texted, called. On the third night, just past midnight, I heard the key turn. He walked in, expressionless, like the last 3 days had never happened. I jumped out of bed, ran to him, crying, "Logan, where were you? I was so scared." He cut me off. "Terminate the pregnancy or I want a divorce." I thought I misheard. I asked again. He repeated, slower, clearer, like I was a child who needed each word spelled out. "You don't need to pretend anymore. I know. Angela told me everything, and I believe her." "You believe her?" "She has proof," he said, pulling out his phone, opening an album. I had never seen those pictures before. One showed me and Richard in my mother's kitchen. I was hugging him, resting my head on his shoulder, like I'd done since I was a child coming home. Another photo, shot from a low, blurry, slanted angle, made it seem like something intimate was happening. But the most painful part was the video, a short 15-second clip from the night I told the family I was pregnant. "Congratulations," Richard's voice said in the clip. "Well, at least it'll have half my genes," he joked, like a family thing only we understood. I remembered that line. It was how he teased when I called the baby everyone's first grandchild. Because he'd always treated me like his own daughter. But when that sentence was ripped from its context and when people were already full of suspicion, what did truth even mean? "Logan, what are you thinking? You really believe I slept with my stepfather? You know me, you know him. How could you?" "You can't expect me not to think about it," he said, eyes red. "The way you hugged him, the way he looked at you. Angela said you were always really close with him when you lived at home. She said you used to give him a look that wasn't appropriate." I went numb, as if every cell in my body was crushed at once. I grabbed his arm. I spoke like I was begging. "You can't take Angela's word as truth. You've lived with me. You know who I am. I would never do something that disgusting. I'll take a DNA test any time. I'll prove it. I swear on everything." "I don't need proof," he snapped. "I don't want that child. No matter whose it is." That sentence felt like a blow that ripped something open inside me. I don't remember how I screamed. I only know I collapsed in our bedroom, arms wrapped around my stomach, whispering to the unborn child, "I'm sorry. I trusted the wrong man." 3 weeks later, I lost the baby. The doctor wrote in the medical file, "Severe psychological stress causing hormonal disruption." I didn't tell Logan. When the divorce papers came, I signed them without reading. We had no shared assets, no shared children, no legal ties. He never mentioned the DNA test again. I guess he felt like he'd escaped something filthy, and I was left with a hollow space nothing could ever fill. I moved. Cut ties with anyone connected to him. I thought that was the end. But it turned out that was only the first page of a much darker chapter. I left Oregon on a winter morning. The sky was gray, the wind bitter, and the city felt colder because of what I was leaving behind. I didn't take much, only a few suitcases, medical records, a discarded wedding ring, and a heart beyond repair. I chose a small coastal town in California, a place so unfamiliar no memory could follow me there, a place where I could walk without the fear of running into a familiar face, where I could quietly watch the sun dip into the sea without the past crashing in like waves. I rented a small house just a few blocks from the beach. No one knew who I was. No one asked why I always looked toward the horizon with eyes so heavy. At first, I barely spoke to anyone besides the grocery store owner nearby and the elderly librarian who always wore a red scarf. I read books, walked the beach each morning, and slowly relearned how to live, not like someone recovering, but like someone learning to exist for the very first time. I don't know how long I lived that way before, one rainy afternoon in February, I stepped into the cafe next to the elementary school and heard the laughter of a child from behind the order counter. "Daddy, I picked my cookie." I looked over. A little girl with bouncy brown curls and freckles across her cheeks held up a cookie like she'd found buried treasure. Beside her was a man in his 30s, shirt slightly wrinkled, eyes tired but gentle. He smiled, crouched down. "All right, but only after lunch. You promised the dentist." The girl scrunched her nose but nodded. I wasn't planning to get involved, but when I stepped up to the counter to pick up my coffee, the girl turned to me. "Do you know what my name is?" I laughed awkwardly. "No, I don't." "My name is Ivy, like the plant?" I smiled. "That's a beautiful name. Ivy always finds a way to grow, no matter where it is." She studied me for a moment, then said very seriously, "I like you. You smell like apple pie." The man behind her stepped forward, a bit embarrassed. "Sorry, she's very friendly." I shook my head. "It's fine. Ivy made this rainy day brighter." He smiled. "I'm Ben. We moved here a few months ago." I had no idea that short exchange would be the beginning of something much bigger. Ben and I kept running into each other, at the bookstore, the park, the grocery store. Sometimes it was a simple nod, other times small talk about the weather, gas prices, or nothing important. Ivy always started the conversations. She had this unstoppable energy, especially for someone like me whose heart was still trying to find a reason to keep beating. One day I helped Ivy after she tripped at the playground. I sat her on a bench, gently cleaned the scrape on her knee with a wet wipe and bottled water from my bag. Ben ran over, breathless and worried, and froze when he saw me. "She saved me," Ivy announced proudly, like she'd won a medal. Ben let out a breath. "Thank you. I don't even know what to say." "I used to be a preschool teacher. Old instincts," I said. From that day on, we started talking more. Ben told me he was a structural engineer, had lived in San Diego and lost his wife to cancer when Ivy was 2. He moved here to give her a quieter life by the sea. I didn't share much about my past, only that I'd been through a rough marriage and was starting over. Time passed. Ben and I grew close, then closer. Not the intense, fiery kind of love, but something warm and slow, like autumn sunlight spilling through a window. I loved the way Ben always put Ivy first. I loved that he asked for my opinion before making any joint decisions. And I loved Ivy. From the moment she held my hand and said, "You're the first grown-up besides my dad I want to read stories to." 1 year later, I officially adopted Ivy. We held a small ceremony with a few friends and a 2-tier cake that read, "Family is where the heart chooses to stay." The day I signed the adoption papers, Ivy stood beside me, her hand gripping mine, and whispered, "What do I call you now?" I knelt down, looked into her eyes. "Call me Mom, if you want to." Ivy didn't say a word. She hugged me tight, and I think, if anything can heal a shattered heart, it's that moment. I was folding laundry in the utility room when my phone buzzed with a strange email. The sender's name was a string of meaningless characters. The subject line simply read, "I'm sorry." I opened it, cautious but not expecting anything terrible. "Natalie, I know it's probably too late to write this, but I recently found out the truth. Angela lied to me. She admitted everything, the photos, the videos, the stories about you and Richard. They were all twisted. I was wrong. I want to see you. And I want to meet our child. Logan." I sank down beside the dryer. My hand, still holding Ivy's tiny t-shirt, began to shake. "Our child?" I hit reply without thinking. "She's not your child. I lost that baby. Please don't contact me again." I hit send. My heart pounded in my chest. That should have been the end. A normal person would have stopped there. But Logan was never someone who let go easily. Especially not when he believed he'd lost something. In the 2 weeks that followed, I began receiving strange messages from newly created social media accounts. At first, apologies. Then, questions. And eventually, accusations. You're lying. I know she's mine, you just don't want me in her life. I have the right to be a father. No matter how much you hate me, the child deserves the truth. She has red hair. You think that's a coincidence? Stop pretending. I blocked each account, but every time I blocked one, a new one appeared. Ben started noticing how often I checked my phone, how I stared out the window like I was waiting for something. One evening he walked into the room while I was rereading the first email Logan had sent. "It's him, isn't it?" Ben asked. His voice wasn't angry, more quietly concerned than anything. I told him everything. I held nothing back. About the marriage before, the child I had lost, Angela, the pain I had once tried to bury. About why I never mentioned Logan. Why I didn't want that name anywhere near the life Ben and I had worked so hard to build. When I finished, Ben didn't say a word. He pulled me into his arms, his hand resting gently on my back. "I'm here. And I'm not letting anyone hurt you or Ivy." I nearly broke down crying, but even the gentlest promises couldn't stop the quiet footsteps crossing the line outside our home. A week later, Ivy came home with a scribbled drawing. A picture of 3 people standing side by side, with the words underneath, "Ivy, Mommy, and stranger?" I asked her, "Sweetheart, who's this man?" Ivy looked up and shrugged. "I don't know his name. He was standing outside the fence while I was playing soccer at school. He asked me what my name was. I didn't answer, but he smiled and walked away." I went to Ivy's school the next day and spoke with the principal. She said she hadn't noticed anything strange but promised to check the playground cameras. 2 days later, she called me back, her voice more serious. "There was a man. He didn't come onto school grounds, but he stood outside the fence for nearly 30 minutes. I went to the school and reviewed the footage. The angle was distant and blurry, but I recognized the silhouette immediately. It was Logan. I reported it to the police. But since he hadn't entered the property or broken any clear laws, they couldn't do much. They simply advised me to heighten security and documented the incident. I couldn't sleep through the night for the entire following week. Ben installed security cameras around the house. I changed all my social media passwords, removed profile photos. But the feeling of being watched didn't fade. One afternoon, I walked out of the grocery store with Ivy and spotted a black SUV parked a few cars away. The driver lowered his head when I looked over, but it was too late. I had already seen those eyes in the rearview mirror. I tightened my grip on my daughter's hand. My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. Logan didn't want forgiveness. He wanted something I couldn't give, and would never allow him to have. One Wednesday morning that seemed ordinary, I had barely brewed the coffee when the phone rang. The caller ID read, Willow Creek Elementary. My heart instantly sank. Calls from school at that hour were rarely good news. I picked up. The principal's voice was calm but slightly tense. "Miss Hayes, I'm calling to confirm. Did you recently send a handwritten letter requesting Ivy be picked up early because her grandmother was in the hospital?" "No, I didn't send anything. Is Ivy okay? Where is she?" "She's in class and perfectly safe. We don't allow any child to leave without verification." "But the letter has your name, your matching address, and it's handwritten." I gripped the phone, heart racing. "Is someone at the school right now?" "Yes. A man in a black SUV is parked in the back lot. He hasn't approached any students. But security is observing him from a distance." I set the coffee cup down. My hand trembled. "Keep Ivy in the classroom. Do not let anyone, even me, approach her without verbal confirmation from this number. I'm on my way." The principal understood the urgency and agreed without hesitation. I called Ben with shaking hands while fumbling through my purse for the car keys. When I got to the school, the black SUV was still there, the exact one I'd seen outside the store. The windows were tinted, but I knew who was inside. I rushed into the front office and asked to review the security footage. The secretary hesitantly pulled up the video from that morning. There he was, Logan, calmly walking into the office, holding a folded handwritten letter. He spoke clearly. "My wife couldn't make it, her mother's in critical condition, so I came instead. Ivy Hayes, 1st grade, Class 1B. No hesitation, no worry in his voice. The receptionist politely told him they needed to verify. Logan smiled. She's at the hospital. She can't answer her phone right now, but I have her note right here. The receptionist looked at the letter. My name, handwriting that closely resembled mine, familiar tone. But something gave her pause. The word grandmother was spelled incorrectly. When she asked him to wait for verification, Logan kept smiling, but his expression briefly froze. Then he nodded, turned, and walked out without another word. I watched that video over and over. Logan's eyes didn't show concern, only a cold persistence, like a man who had rehearsed the scene many times. I left school with Ivy, clutching her hand like I was afraid she might vanish. Ben was already waiting near the school gate, standing silently. When we got home, I began gathering every piece of evidence I had. The anonymous emails, the messages from fake accounts, photos of Logan's car near our home, near the school, a copy of the handwritten letter left at the school, the school security footage. I submitted everything to the local police and filed for a temporary restraining order while the case was under review. Officer Rodriguez stared at the footage for a long time before asking, "He's your ex-husband, right? Do you have legal custody of Ivy?" "She's my legally adopted daughter. I have full guardianship. With what you've provided, we'll petition for an emergency order from the judge. But to escalate this into a criminal abduction investigation, we'll need more concrete evidence of intent." I bit my lip. "So I have to wait until he actually does something before we're protected?" She didn't answer. She quietly slid the temporary order form across the desk toward me. "The only advice I can give, keep all doors locked and never go anywhere alone." That night I sat in the bedroom, the soft glow of the nightlight casting shadows on the wall. Ivy slept soundly between me and Ben. My eyes lingered on her face. So innocent, so peaceful, completely unaware that somewhere out there, a man was trying to force his way into her world under the title of father. I used to believe that forgiveness could heal, but Logan hadn't come back to say sorry. He came to claim something that no longer belonged to him, if it ever did at all. This wasn't a fear living only in my head anymore. It was standing right outside the door. I woke at 2 a.m. to pounding fists against the door, like thunder crashing through the silence of the night. "Natalie, open up!" I bolted upright, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't need to look through the window. I already knew who was out there. The shouting continued, filled with rage, desperation, and obsession. "She's my daughter! You took her from me! She's my flesh and blood!" Ben shot up right after me. He motioned for silence and walked over to the bedroom window. I saw him freeze, his jaw tightened, and immediately he grabbed his phone and turned to me. "Call the police right now." I rushed to the phone, hands shaking as I dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm and steady, but I could barely stop my own voice from catching. "Only 21 down to go," I thought. "This bird thinks..." "There's a man, my ex-husband. He's outside our house screaming in the middle of the night. He once forged a letter in my name to take my daughter from school. I already have a temporary restraining order. He's trying to break in." The dispatcher reassured me, promised that officers were on their way. But the waiting, in the middle of the night, with a man who had already crossed every boundary, felt like something out of a nightmare. Logan kept shouting. "Angela told the truth. You slept with your stepfather. You betrayed me, and then you stole my daughter." My eyes met Ben's. He gripped my arm tightly, guiding me toward Ivy's room. "Stay in there with her. Don't come out until the police arrive." I hurried into my daughter's room, shut the door, locked it, and wrapped my arms around the small sleeping body on the bed. I tried not to wake Ivy, but my palms were ice cold. Old memories surged like black waves. The first time I told him I was pregnant. The last time I begged him to believe me. The day I left, with empty hands. A police siren blared outside. I heard tires screeching, then heavy footsteps. Someone shouted, "Hands up, do not come any closer." I opened the door just as Ben came to meet me. He nodded. "It's okay. They made it in time." When I stepped onto the porch, Logan was being held back by 2 officers. He wasn't resisting, but his eyes, those eyes, were locked on me, as if I were the one who had done something wrong. I have proof, he yelled. Angela confessed. She admitted everything. She lied to me. She made me believe the wrong thing, but now I know the truth and I came to fix it. I'm her father. I stayed quiet, met his gaze calmer than I expected. One of the officers turned to me and asked, Miss Hayes, did he leave anything? Letters, documents, anything at all? No. But he said he has proof? The officer nodded. He claims to have a handwritten letter from someone named Angela Carter. I frowned. She's the one who fabricated the whole story that made him think I cheated 10 years ago. As they started leading Logan away, he suddenly yanked against the officer's grip, turned back, pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat pocket, and tossed it on the ground. Read it. That's the proof, Natalie. I'm not crazy. I want my daughter. An officer picked up the paper using gloves and handed it to me. I unfolded it. Handwritten. Thin, familiar strokes. Logan, I can't hold this in anymore. I made it all up. Natalie didn't do anything wrong. I made up the story about her and her stepfather because I wanted to. The sentence stopped mid-line. The page had been torn. The last part was missing. I clutched the paper. Half a truth, and the other half. A bottomless void. Ben stepped beside me, his voice low and sharp. Amy? He brought this thinking it would excuse him screaming outside your house at 2 a.m, like it gave him permission to violate every boundary you set? I stared down at the letter. I always thought Angela would confess one day. I never imagined it would happen like this. I didn't know when she wrote that letter to Logan. Before or after she lost control. Before or after her marriage collapsed. That night, after the police left, I sealed the letter in a plastic sleeve and added it to the folder of documents I had been collecting. I knew I'd need it. This time, I would be the one taking the next step. If Logan thought he could turn my life into another nightmare, he was wrong. I called Tessa the very next morning. She was my best friend from college and now a custody and family dispute attorney in Sacramento. We hadn't seen much of each other since I moved to the coastal town, but I knew if anyone could help me uncover the truth behind all this, it was her. Do you still have Logan and Angela's old records? I asked over the phone, my voice trembling slightly. Tessa paused for a beat. You're having trouble with them again? I think it's more than trouble. Do you have time to meet in person? There's something I need you to look into. It's not okay. None of this is. That afternoon, I drove nearly 3 hours to Tessa's downtown office. We sat in a small conference room where the yellow lights cast shadows on the dark wood table, making the documents she laid out feel twice as heavy. I always suspected Angela was unstable, but I didn't know she had been committed to a psychiatric facility, Tessa said, tapping a file with her finger. When? I asked, my throat dry. 2 years ago, after she tried to sabotage a wedding in Reno. She impersonated the bride in the registry system. Emailed all the guests claiming the wedding was off because the bride had run away with her ex. It turned into a public scandal. The groom's family sued Angela. She was declared temporarily unfit and was placed under mandatory treatment for 8 months. I sat in silence, feeling every part of my body contract from the chill. Did Logan know about this? I asked, though deep down I already had a feeling. Tessa nodded. Not only did he know, according to the facility's records, Logan visited her every week while she was hospitalized, and after her release, they kept in regular contact. There are signed visitor logs from Logan, it's undeniable. I leaned back in the chair, completely drained. So? He knew Angela made it all up and had known for a long time, but he did nothing. Only when he saw Ivy, my daughter, with red hair like his, did he decide to come back. Not to apologize, but to claim her. As for emergency custody, Tessa continued, pulling out another file. He filed a petition with the district court where you currently live. He's requesting visitation and temporary guardianship of a minor, claiming the child is his biological daughter, hidden from him after lies and divorce. I shot up from my chair. What? He filed without a DNA test? Without any legal proof? He attached a photo of Ivy, citing shared hair color, facial bone structure, and most importantly, he referenced a handwritten letter, the incomplete one from Angela. I lost the child I once carried, and now he's using someone else's child to replace her, based on a torn letter from a woman who was once declared legally incompetent. How could the court even take that seriously? Tessa went quiet for a moment. Because this is an emergency filing, if the court sees reasonable possibility, they can request a preliminary hearing. Luckily, your adoption paperwork is fully legal. I'll forward everything to the county's assigned attorney for response, but you need to be ready, because he's speeding things up. Tessa held my gaze for a long moment, then spoke slowly. And one more thing. She placed a printed copy of a flight ticket on the table. Logan bought 2 one-way tickets from California to Colorado, departing next week. He booked them under the names Logan Parker and Ivy Hayes. My whole body went cold. I stared at the bold letters on the paper like I couldn't believe my eyes. Right next to it was a prescription record for a strong sedative called lorazepam, commonly used to treat severe anxiety or induce sleep almost immediately. Tessa spoke as if she were reading from a script she herself didn't want to believe. The prescription is valid, but the dosage is unusually high, and he just requested a refill, stating the reason as insomnia due to emotional stress from reuniting with biological child. I don't remember how I left Tessa's office. I only remember standing in the cold afternoon air, dialing Ben. When he answered, I whispered like someone who had fallen from a great height. He's planning to take her, no matter what it takes. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. We're not letting that happen, Ben said firmly, even if I have to stand in front of the airport myself. That Sunday, the town held its annual harvest festival. Early in the morning, Ben and I took Ivy to the town square, lined with apple pie stands, pumpkins, and kids' games. Ivy wore a yellow dress embroidered with red leaves, holding a balloon and darting around like a little sunbeam. We left around noon to prepare dinner with neighbors. Ben stopped by the print shop to pick up a complaint form he'd ordered. Ivy and I went into the house first. I let her watch cartoons in the living room while I checked the chicken in the oven. Less than 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Before I could reach it, Ivy had already run over, her eyes lighting up. "It's Daddy!" I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. Ben couldn't have gotten home that fast. I rushed to the front, but the door had already cracked open. Standing there was Logan. Dressed in a crisp button-down shirt, holding a knit cap, hair slicked back. His face was calm. Unnervingly so. "Ivy," he said, crouching slightly, reaching out. "Are you ready?" She stepped back, confused, looking at me, then at him. "Who are you?" I screamed. "Ivy, go inside, lock your room." Logan lifted his gaze, lips tight. "Don't make this messy. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I came for the girl. And this time, I won't let you lie to me again." I clenched the phone in my hand and hit the emergency alert button on the safety app we'd installed. Logan saw my move and immediately took a step back. "We both know she's mine, Natalie. You think I don't see it? Her eyes, her hair, that smile. You can't hide the truth forever." One hand on the door, the other holding the phone, my mind raced through the backup plans Ben and I had made. After the forged letter at school, I had secretly attached a small GPS tracker to the strap of Ivy's backpack. I checked the battery each morning, saved the location each night. I never thought I'd need it. But that afternoon, when I went to the kitchen to grab water, I noticed the backpack was gone. Ivy never took it out without an adult. I opened the tracking app. The signal was moving toward the city airport. I called Ben immediately. "She's gone. Her backpack too. The tracker's on Highway 14 heading toward the airport." Ben didn't say a word, just slammed the steering wheel and replied, "Send me the coordinates. I'm calling airport police directly." I don't remember what I wore or how I got into the car. I only remember the GPS app pinging every minute as the distance between me and Ivy grew. As I drove, my mind replayed every detail. The backpack she'd left on the couch, the cracked open door, her innocent voice saying "Daddy" with no hesitation, because Logan knew how to disguise himself perfectly. Police were already at the airport thanks to Ben's emergency report. I ran into the parking area just as Logan was being detained near his black SUV. Ivy was still in the car, locked inside but not yet taken. She was still in her festival dress, hugging her teddy bear tight. Her face was pale. When she saw me, she burst into tears. Mommy! I lunged toward the car, hands trembling as I pressed the unlock button. Officers kept Logan away while asking me to stay calm and confirm Ivy's identity. Once the door opened, I held Ivy so tight I couldn't speak. Logan, meanwhile, screamed like he was the victim. "She's my daughter. You don't understand, I have the birth certificate. I'm her biological father." One officer pulled a folder from his car. Inside were one-way flight tickets to Colorado, a forged birth certificate naming Logan as the father, and a bottle of strong sedatives, prescribed in Logan Parker's name. The officer met my eyes. "Your name isn't on any of these documents. He has no custody rights, and this clearly qualifies as attempted kidnapping. We'll take it from here." I held Ivy, never taking my eyes off Logan as they cuffed and led him away. His expression wasn't panicked anymore. It was cold, empty, almost like relief. And I realized this wasn't about Ivy. It was about controlling me again, using a child to do it. I never thought I'd find myself in a courtroom, not as defendant or plaintiff, but as a mother standing up to protect her child from someone who once shared my bed and dreams. On the witness stand, I laid out every fact, every piece of evidence, clearly, deliberately, as if each sentence was a stake I had to drive into the ground to rebuild the safety Logan tried to destroy. I submitted medical records from nearly 10 years ago, when I lost my first pregnancy at 13 weeks. The doctor had clearly documented the cause: severe hormonal decline due to acute psychological stress. I also presented Ivy's legal adoption file, fully completed 2 years ago, with state and court certification. When my attorney submitted the GPS data, photos of Logan's SUV near our house, a copy of the forged school pickup letter, and the security footage of Logan trying to retrieve Ivy illegally, the courtroom fell into eerie silence. No one said a word as the investigator placed the bottle of sedatives on the table, along with the prescription Logan wrote for himself under the reason, insomnia due to separation from biological child. But the real turning point came when Angela Carter appeared. She was wheeled in, wearing a light blue patient gown, her face pale and makeup-free, her hair unkempt, eyes sunken, gaze vacant like she wasn't even sure where she was. When asked if she agreed to testify, she nodded slowly. Her voice rose like wind through dry trees. "I lied. Years ago. I couldn't bear that Logan loved her, so I created something he could never unsee. A sentence, a photo, a story that would outlive the truth." Angela lowered her head. "I lived too long in the illusion that if Natalie disappeared I'd get Logan back, but I got nothing." The judge ordered her testimony cut short due to her unstable mental state, but every word she spoke erased any remaining doubt from the minds of everyone present. The court sentenced Logan to a minimum of 8 years in prison for attempted kidnapping of a minor, falsifying legal documents, intentional psychological harm to a child, and multiple violations of a restraining order. Ivy's case was sealed in full at the request of our family attorney to ensure her identity and privacy would never be compromised. A month later, I accepted an invitation to speak at a community forum for women who had survived emotional abuse in marriages and past relationships. It was held in a small center in Monterey. I hadn't planned to say much, but standing before over 30 women, each carrying an invisible scar, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I told part of my story, about a marriage that started with promises and ended in suspicion, about a child denied by her own father before she was born, about a man who returned not to apologize but to take, under the label of father, and something he called forgotten love. I ended with a sentence I had forged from every painful day I had survived. "Not everyone who holds a knife is dangerous. Some words, if you let them live too long, will kill you from the inside." I looked toward the front row where Ivy sat between Ben and her music teacher. She waved at me when she saw me looking. That small smile? That was why I was still standing. Still breathing. Still able to turn scars into a light others could follow. Logan may have once been a part of my past, but from now on, he was nothing more than a shadow that would never touch the light I had chosen, for me and my daughter. Have you ever had to stand up for someone you love, even when no one believed you? I don't think my story is rare. Maybe the form is different. A former husband, a lying relative, or a relationship that made you lose yourself, but the feeling of being strangled by the past, I think many of us have known that. And what would you do if you were me, standing at the crossroads between forgiveness, fury, and a mother's instinct. Share your thoughts below, I want to hear from you. And maybe, just maybe, a piece of my story is echoing through your own. If stories like this resonate with you, don't forget to click subscribe and hit like to stay with us. We have more to tell you about women who walked through darkness, about family, loss, courage, and the many ways we all can find our way back to a place called home.